Welcome to the Oddsbreakers, #1 place for shared, sharp betting information.
All right, welcome back to podcast 56-18. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can tweet me at the Public Dog, or you can tweet us at the Oddsbreakers. My friends, we have a fantastic show for you today. We are going to go over our Week 11 college football recap and then go through our betting spots. And then we have a very special guest all the way from Buffalo, New York, to explain to you how life is being a Bills fan. And then finally, we are going to get into fantasy football with D Nasty. Very excited for this show. What a great week in college football. We went 11-5, up 7.5 units. Didn't hit any money line sprinkles. Had 3 of them going, but was close on the Kansas one. Not close at all on Boston College and Mississippi State, but it was a fantastic weekend of college football, and the NFL is on, well, actually right now as I'm podcasting. Should you be looking for a sports book, please visit uwager.eu. Use the promo code TheOddsBreakers for a one-time 50% bonus. If you'd like to help us out with our costs, we would love to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a patron subscriber and an Oddsbreakers member, and we will give you our picks when we make the picks before the line moves. So if nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com and sign up for our free picks newsletter. Let's go over some of these awesome games of last week. Just kind of bringing it up here, some of the scores. And, man, I got to tell you, it was a lot of fun watching some of these games. But I'll tell you, Alabama, just ridiculously good. 2 weeks in a row, they shut out teams like other top teams in the SEC. Clemson, shut them out as well. You know, Clemson was amazing as well. They're still a step below Bama, I believe. But, I mean, if Bama screwed up a little bit, this could be a close game. They'd have to, throw a couple picks possibly or something. But I think that these teams are definitely on the top and above the others. Alabama did get lucky to not allow Mississippi State. A phantom penalty flag came out of an official for somebody flopped and it didn't even get touched, and they just threw a penalty. You should, if you're an official, you should see what you're calling. Okay, you should have to see what you're calling. Otherwise, you should definitely be suspended or fined. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. Trying to play the guessing game and stuff like that. It makes people come up with conspiracies and other things like that. I don't know what the hell he was doing there, but it definitely it made Mississippi State have to play a little bit more of a passing game, I thought, and change the game slightly. They still would have lost. Just don't know by how much. We had the plus 26 because we got it early, sent it out to our members. But, there's probably a lot of people out there, plus 23, plus 24, push a little bit, lost maybe. That was brutal for them. So, hopefully, if you're listening to this podcast, you got it early enough. Anyways, I want to cover a little bit of NCAA ATS records because they changed a little bit. So, Utah State, they covered that 31 for us, and they're 9-1. And Washington State covered their spread. We were on them, and they're 9-1. But a couple teams that didn't. Fresno State lost outright to Boise. They were 8-1. Now they're 8-2. UAB, they didn't cover their spread. Now, I believe they were looking ahead to this Texas A&M game that they have next week. And that's not an easy game for Texas A&M by any means. I think that UAB was lucky. They were down to Southern Miss. They got by them 26-23. But Texas A&M, be careful there. UAB's coming to ball. Our guys from Buffalo, still 8-2. Ain't no win going to stop them. That was a premium play that we gave out. And, the wind was so bad, 25 to 30 miles per hour gusts, up to 50 miles per hour gusts, but consistent 25 mile per hour wind. Everyone took that spread down from 23 all the way down to 17. We hit it at 20. And then, I noticed the weather was going to hold out and be bad, so I was a little nervous, but a good team's a good team. They were able to throw Tyree Jackson, man, he's got a gun. They were able to get by the win factor, and they were still throwing that ball, man. So I found that interesting. And their running game was pretty good, too. Kent State didn't have a chance to get their asses kicked. I think that spread was well covered by the first half, even. And then Troy, 7-2-1's the next best, and they beat Georgia Southern. Troy has that rush defense, and I'm upset that I did not take Troy. I should have. Definitely mad at myself for not doing that, and because I was leaning hard that way. FIU, that's right, baby. They won like 45-3. The spread was 11. I jumped on them again. I lost on them on the week before against Florida Atlantic. Jumped on them right again. Sometimes just because you lose against that team doesn't mean you shouldn't be on them. There's usually more value the next time. So did well with them against the spread. Man, Gardner Minshew for Washington State. I got to tell you, I got a buddy that went to Washington and his wife went to Washington State. Told me a little story about Gardner Minshew. He was supposed to transfer from East Carolina to Alabama. That's how good he is, right? And, how do you get a kid away from going to Alabama? Well, from the story, I guess, is that Mike Leach, I don't know if he called him or knocked on his door. I'd like to think it was the latter. But I guess Mike Leach went up to Gardner Minshew, and all he had to say was a couple words. He said, "How would you like to lead all of college football in passing this year?" Sold. Gardner Minshew decided not to go to Alabama and transferred all the way from one end of the country to the other to Washington State and became the guy you've been watching the last 10 weeks. I'm shocked that they lost to USC, this team, but God, it's going to be a shame when they don't make the playoff because I just don't see how they're going to get in. Notre Dame's got too easy of an out. Clemson, too easy of an out. Alabama, even if they lose to Georgia, they're in. I mean, it's just, I just don't see how, and Auburn's not that good anymore. I just don't see how they're going to get in, which is really, really sad. But then again, you got the UCF fans that are just as pissed off. And like I said, I agree with them. The system is complete bullshit. All right, so we know that Buffalo took care of business at Kent State. Miami of Ohio versus Ohio. That was a huge game. Miami of Ohio has improved. The sharp side was Ohio. Then there's buyback, I believe, at 5.5. Miami of Ohio ended up winning that game at home. And tough for Ohio because they only had one loss in the MAC, and they had a shot if they beat Buffalo the next week, I believe, to go to the championship. But I think they're out unless Buffalo somehow loses to Bowling Green, which I don't see happening. Northern Illinois is the other tough team in the MAC on the other side, 6-0. So it's looking like they're playing Northern Illinois. They took care of business really well against Toledo. Northern Illinois, it's kind of like a San Diego State type team, pretty dang good. Didn't play a ton of great teams, except the non-conference. They lost 3 games. One was Iowa. And yeah, it's just Iowa, Utah. And we know Utah's tough, and they lost to Florida State somehow. I don't know how the fuck they lost to Florida State. Jesus. But, they're the other team in the MAC. Yeah, look out for it. Wake Forest, man, versus NC State. They upset NC State at NC State. There's, that hurts Clemson's, I guess, power rating a little, you would think. NC State, way overrated at 6-3. Now 3-3 in the ACC. God, were they overrated. And they weren't nearly as good as that was at 5-0, 6-0 start that they had. Absolutely brutal. They started 5-0, lost to Clemson, lost to Syracuse, beat Florida State, and lost to Wake Forest. So, NC State, one-dimensional type team. Then Fresno State played Boise State, man, and I got to tell you, I watched the first half, and I realized my over wasn't hitting, and I was like, screw this. I think I fell asleep, but it looks like Brett Rippon didn't even have the most passing yards. He had 1 TD, 1 interception, 269 yards, and Marcus McMarrion had 283 yards and 1 TD. The Boise State pounded the ball all over him, 179 yards to 107. That's how they won the game. They controlled the clock, it looks like to me. And when you control the clock, you control the game. 34 minutes to 25 minutes. That's pretty huge. So that's the story on that game, and that's why the under hit. They pounded the ball. I didn't think that Fresno State was that weak after seeing them play some running teams this year. So I'm going to give them a pass. I'm on Fresno State to win the Mountain West. So I'm crossing my fingers still with that one. Wisconsin versus Penn State. Wisconsin with Jack Cohn. Brutal. If it wasn't for Jonathan Taylor breaking out that 70-some yard run, they'd have no offense. 209 total yards to 343. McSorley had 160 yards passing. Jack Cohn threw 2 picks. I think he fumbled a couple times too. Yeah, he fumbled twice. Lost the ball both times. Boy, that kid, he's been in the system for a little while. I thought he'd be able to be a little bit better than that, but the jury's looking pretty bad on him. Everyone's waiting for Graham Mertz, the next recruit, the next guy up in Wisconsin, because a lot of people aren't too happy at Hornibrook. But you know what it is? I think it's a combination of everything. Joe Rudolph, he was an offensive line coach. He has no business being an offensive coordinator. I don't know what happened to Paul Chryst. I thought he called most of the plays. If he does, then it's partially his fault, but there's no creativity to this offense whatsoever. Badger fans should be pissed off. They absolutely should be pissed off. And guess what? Northwestern is representing the Big Ten West. Nice job, you bunch of shitheads. How do you really feel, right? Well, I guess when your team comes in as a top 10 team, your expectations are high, and you're more mad when it doesn't even come to fruition, and you're not even top 25. Alabama, I think this was Tunga Viola's worst game. 14 for 21, 1 TD and 164 yards. But like it mattered. Nick Fitzgerald couldn't get anything going. They ran for 44 total yards. Bama ran for 142 with Josh Jacobs actually leading the way, 20 carries and 97. They have a ton of running backs there. Plus, Bama's really healthy. It's unfair. Bama's unfair, man. They're just so good and healthy and big and strong and handsome. It's just unfair. Even like the next best teams are like, dude, Georgia, Michigan, Clemson. We're just like, dude, we're good. Notre Dame, come on, we're good. But just unfortunately, Bama's just that much better. Oklahoma had a tough game, didn't they? Taylor Cornelius actually led the passing game at 500 yards. Oklahoma won 48-47 because Oklahoma State went for 2 with a minute left. Something I never say to do, because they could have came back and hit a field goal. You never do that. You don't force the other team to go drive and hit a field goal. But anyways, they missed it, so it didn't matter. Cornelius, 500 yards, 139 yards rushing. Boy, this game went way over. 95 total points. Kyler Murray had 349 yards, 66 on the ground. Oklahoma's rushing game, though, they ran for 353 yards, so Looks like they